Running. All right, so let's see where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and run the app once and see. Oh, I got 2 build errors. Oh, I got a NuGet package restore failure. All right, so first thing we got to do is implement our tap handler, which is similar to what we've done in the past. But I will drag you through it again just for familiarity purposes. Did you get that okay, Christine?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah, run that. I want to make sure we're at where I think we're at. Okay. So we have our list of schools. We have the address. We have our logo and we have our name. Okay, so the school object we're going to have to modify a little bit because it's going to have to hold position data too, but that's okay. We'll worry about that later. One thing at a time. All right. So we should probably go to our image list view model. And we're no longer needing the dummy data. We're big boys and girls now, so I'm going to delete that. Clean that up a little bit. All right, so we need to, in order to do our command, since everything is MVVM driven, view model driven in terms of navigation, we're going to keep that nice and pure. We will create an imvx view command. This will be the select command. And I have to include the using for commands. Oh, I don't know why I got view in there. Sorry, it's just imvx command. MVVM cross.commands is what has that. Then up top, we will create a private implementation of that. MVX command. And this is going to take a parameter. So this will be like what we did once before. When you tap on a list item, you can get the object that's bound to that list item, which in this case is going to be a school. So we're going to be passing a school to the next screen. And I'll call this the item tapped command. I'm going to get away from the whole clicked concept because no one's clicking on a mobile device. All right, item tapped command. So we need to put a getter in here. We need to do this. So this is syntax we learned once before. We need to check to see if this guy is null by doing this fancy double question mark notation. That's basically the is null operator. If it is null, we need to return a new MVX command. And then we'll code in the lambda for that right away. You can just pick the little suggestion they give you, and then get rid of the semicolon, put curly braces in there. Something like that. I'm going to change this from obj to, first of all, this needs to be async. I'm going to get rid of this whole thing here. Async. I don't know why I even picked that, to be honest with you. Async item, we'll call it. And then this part we can't do yet. So let's see. All right. So I'm just going to do this to satisfy the compiler until we have our stuff together and we actually have a page to go to. All right. So to accomplish that, this guy's going to get triggered basically when the selected item property of the list view changes, which is how we did it before. Probably the easiest way to implement this stuff without really writing some hacked up code. All right. So we put a getter in here for a selected item. And so in order to implement that, we need to have a private selected item property. Say school. Selected item school as a private property. You guys need this bigger, by the way. This looks kind of smallish. Yeah. Is that okay? All right. So getter for our selected item is going to just return the selected item. What we're really interested here is the setter. So in the setter, we're going to set it, of course, but then after we set it, then we're going to check it, do a null check. Actually, I'm going to do the reverse. Let's do it. If it's equal to null, we just return. We don't do anything else because we got some garbage there. Otherwise, if it's not equal to null, we call our select command. .execute, passing in the selected item. And then the last thing we want to do is set the selected item to be null, so that when it comes back in, it's not selected. We don't have a pre-selected one. That's it. So the selected command.execute is going to call this guy, or select command.execute, and then that's just going to call the actual function, the body of it. And in here, we're going to go ahead and do some navigation to our map screen, which we haven't created yet. So the only other thing we need to do with this stuff, with the image list view, is bind our selected items. So we go into the XAML, and in our list view, so we just, real easy here, selected items, actually already highlighted, equals binding selected item. So if you ran it now, it would just do nothing because all it's doing is a task.delay. But we have everything in place now so that we can do something. And that something is going to be to navigate to our map page. Passing in the info that we have from our school. Well, this is a really challenging bottle cap. All right. So, let's see. In our views, probably should add a map view. This will be forms file. And this will be a forms content page XAML file. And we'll just call it map page. Okay. So once again, since this is going to be an MVX content page, we're going to shoehorn our MVVM here with our maps. So we're going to have a lot of balls in the air here, because we're going to have Xamarin Forms. We're going to have, which then has to render on each platform correctly. We're going to have MVVM driving this whole thing, and then that's going to interact with Google Maps API and Xamarin Forms maps. So we'll see how this all comes together in our little cocktail of happiness. All right, so we have a map page. We need to go into the XAML. And we need to add our views stuff. So I'm going to go into my image list view and grab the views namespace. And then we need to change our page type to a views MVX content page. All right. Inside of here, we'll put a stack layout. Orientation will be vertical. Set some padding around our map. All right, so for right now, that is about all we're going to be able to do with it. Because the next thing we got to do is add in map NuGet package. Is everyone following along okay so far? All good. All right. Yeah. So let me know whenever you're ready, Josh. So it was fairly fairly recent that they added support for Xamarin Forms maps. Up until, I don't know, probably a year or two ago, maybe. Okay. Up till about a year or two ago, you actually had to write custom renderers for the map stuff on each platform, which really kind of negated using forms. But they fixed that, so now we have that available. Let's see, so we should probably start off in our Xamarin Forms project on the top and do an add NuGet package. And we're going to want to add Xamarin. Oops. Dot forms. Dot maps. I believe. Yeah, there it is. Give this a minute. It's got a really weird version number. The version number is kind of important, so we'll have to see how this plays out because I know that you have to have the right version. But let's go ahead and add the package. Yeah, the package restore failed. Okay, so that's what I was afraid of. Let's see here. You guys might not get that because you have newer Macs and stuff. Cross that forms. Xamarin forms. What I'm going to do is I think I'm going to have to update my NuGet packages. So if you look in your package console, if you guys have an error that says package restore failed, you may have to update your NuGet packages in your project. So I'm going to go up to the solution level, right click, and go update NuGet packages. And it looks like I do have an update for Xamarin Forms. Okay. So that updates your Xamarin Forms, which then hopefully in turn will allow you to install the maps. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to go to my tabs, do an add package, try adding the maps. Oh, looks like maybe it'll work this time. Okay. So how's it going for you guys? Are you able to add the NuGet package? Did you have to update your... Okay. All right, so then that should have, when we did the update, that should have hit everything. So we've got to add that to both of the platform projects as well. Okay, it says it was added to Android. All right, looks like we have NuGet packages now. I'll give you guys a minute, and we will move on to the next step. Okay, so our NuGet package is added. We want to go back to our map page.xaml. And in here we'll want to add a namespace similar to what we do with MDVM. We're going to add a namespace for the maps. So that's an XML namespace declaration, and our namespace we'll just call maps. And you can actually, with these namespaces, you can define them to be whatever you want. You know, this namespace could be supercalifragilistic. It doesn't matter, you know. But maps is clear and understandable. Common language runtime hyphen namespace Xamarin forms maps. And then that is in the assembly. I think the assembly is just called Xamarin forms.maps. Yeah, assembly is so after the assembly put equals Xamarin.forms.maps. That's it. Okay, so that is our namespace declaration. Now we can reference these guys. Sure, I don't have any typos because I usually do. Alright, looks okay. And then our class is the same. So now, now that we have that, inside here we can create an instance of a map. We have our namespace. And if you don't have a typo in your namespace declaration, it actually should give you IntelliSense for the map object. We're going to give it a width request. We have a padding of 30, so we'll want to go about roughly 320. Should give us pretty even spacing there on the sides. Height request we'll set to, we'll say 500. That way when we eventually get around to putting a search bar at the top, we get a little room with our padding. Okay, so we have a map. We'll give it a name. I'm going to keep this simple. Map is showing user. We'll set to true. Map type, we'll start off with street. And then we need an item source for this guy. We need to set that yet. So, okay, for now, that'll be good. So we are going to bind to this map, as I promised. But first we have to, first we need to create an item source for it. So, I need to figure out how I'm going to do that. Alright, so now that we have a view model, let's go back into our image list view model. And in here, yeah, sure. Yeah. You good, Christine? Yeah. All right. In our image list view model, we need to add, in addition to, for our dependency injection interfaces, we have a school getter. We're also going to need to add the navigation service. Navigation service. And then, of course, we'll have to create a private property for it. And then in our constructor, we set our private property equal to what's passed in. Like that. So now we can use it to navigate with. Only thing we're missing is we need a view model for our map. So we got to do that next. Sometimes as you do these things, it just kind of occurs, oh yeah, I need that. So we need a map view model to match our map page. So again, we're kind of roadblocked until we get that. So that'll be the next thing we do. Down in our core project, we will want to add a view model. Just be an empty class. Call it the map view model. I suppose in here we should probably keep a pointer to the navigation service too, because we got to navigate back and all that good stuff. So we can go ahead and do that. Actually, it's MBX. So IMBX. So in here, of course, in the constructor, once again, we do what we always do. We set the private property equal to that. There, now we can navigate. All right, so let's see, we need a instance of a school as well. So that's what's going to get passed into us. See if I can make this confusing as possible. Have the property name the same as the type. So you'll have to add a using for that guy to use the models namespace for a school. Okay, one other thing we're going to need to do is up here in our view model declaration is we've got to derive this, of course, from MVX view model. But in addition to that, because of the fact that we are passing in a custom object into this view model, this is where, you might remember we had to do this before we're passing, we have to define that. And that's going to yell at us because we don't have a prepare set up. I think it might give us the option, yeah, implement. So we have to set up the prepare. Okay, so what's going to happen is we select an item in the list view. It's going to grab the school that's associated with the list item, and it's going to pass it into this guy, which has the prepare defined, which will then do what it needs to do to create the data binding for the map that's in the XAML. So we want to get rid of our not implemented exception. And first thing we do is set our property equal to the parameter being passed in. All right. Now, this is where things get a little bit dicey. We are going to want to pinpoint on the map the location of the school that's passed in. So we need to do some stuff, I think, here. All right, first of all, we need to find the location of Midstate. Actually, no, we don't. I take that back. let's do this. So I believe there's a geocoding module we can add in here, a NuGet package that will allow us to make a call to a geocoding service, passing in the address of the school, which I believe we do have on all of them, and it will geocode the address into a latitude, longitude position, and then that is what we can use then for our pin position. But I think what we're going to want to do is modify our school object. So if we go into the school model, we're going to want to add a property called position. I'm just getting really clever here with these confusing property names. All right. So we don't have a position yet, so we need to add a NuGet package to get that. Let's see. Yeah, all right. Let's see. Let's go to our tabs core. Do an add NuGet package. I'm trying to remember. I think this guy is located in. I think the geocoding is in Xamarin.essentials without an equal sign. Or extra E. Yeah, Xamarin Essentials I think is where all the geocode stuff is located. Let's give it a go. So we'll add that. And of course we are going to want to add this all over the place. So that it is in the platforms and in the Xamarin Forms. Microsoft did a really nice job of making Visual Studio 2017 for Mac, but they do little things to, I think, to kind of punish you for using a Mac. Such as, you can't just add a NuGet package like you can on Windows. You can add a NuGet package to the entire solution. On Mac, you got to do them individually. It's just one of those things that they're like, well, if you had a Windows machine, this wouldn't be a problem. All right, so add those in. All right, so now we should have access to this position if that's the right package. Maybe. Maybe not.
I had access to the position from that point.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the reason was you must have added it to the core project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't add it there. I'm thinking of the search capability. I think that's what's in Essentials. It wasn't done yet. All right, yeah, thanks for catching that. All right, sure enough. All right, so now we're going to need this position object in our school to bind to. Back here in the map view model, We got the school equal to parameter. Okay, so let's, we want to be able to geocode this guy, and that's where our Xamarin Essentials comes in, but we're going to need, I'm thinking that the best way to implement this would be as using a helper. Let's go ahead and do that. This is probably the best way, or the right way to go about doing this. Let's go to the core app and add a folder, and we will label the folder helpers. And then right click and add a new file. This will be just a generic class. We are going to call this location helper. This is a utility class that we're going to use. This can be a static class, so we don't have to have an instance of it. So with a static class, it's kind of nice because you don't have to have an instance of it, and it's really easy to test. It is not as easy to unit test because it doesn't have an interface in front of it. But instead of just doing a typical unit test where you're using interfaces that you mock, we can just actually create a, just call the method on it instead. So I think this is the easiest way to, usually with helpers, I like to do them with static objects. All right, so we do not have a constructor because this is a static class. Let's make a public static async task, which returns a position, and call this geocode. Passing in an address, which is a string, like that. We'll need to add system.threading and maps. All right. So what we'll do is before we bind everything, we're going to make a call to this class to get the latitude, longitude, position of the object, return that, and then that goes in the position of the school object, which then gets bound to the map, and away we go. So we're adding a lot of code without actually seeing if anything works yet. That's okay. We'll see what happens. I'm going to put a try catch in here though, because this is a call to an external API. So I'll do locations equals await geocoding, and we'll have to resolve that using Xamarin Essentials geocoding.get locations async, and it just simply takes the address and we'll catch a feature not supported exception in case we have something wrong with our geocoder or the hardware does not support it. And then we will also catch a just regular generic exception. So we haven't really done anything with these multiple catches yet, I don't think, but good practice to, like, if you're doing something very specific and you want to get the most information you can from an exception when it's thrown, it's great to use things like feature not supported exception, because then that means that you'll get that, like, for example, if the device you're using doesn't support that feature, or you need to update your OS or something like that. Okay, so this gives us a list of locations, which is an IEnumerable of location. And then what we'll do with that is, well, first we should do a null check. If locations is not null, we'll do a locations, and let's make this a nullable type. That's what the question mark does. And we need to add a using system.link. So we're going to grab the first location. So this can happen like if you use an address that has, like, say it's an apartment building, and you just specify the general location of the apartment building, and it's like a suite in the apartment or something like that. Pretty typical thing where you get like multiple locations returned to you. So we're just going to grab the first one. In the case of the school, that should be pretty straightforward. There should only be like one school at each location, but that's what we'll do. We grab the first or default. If location is not null, we can get fancy with this. We can do a little console write line for debugging purposes. We'll say the latitude would be location.latitude. Longitude. Location.longitude. We can get really fancy and print out the altitude too, but that's good enough. And then we will return a new position. And the position object can be constructed with a latitude and a longitude as well. It seems like there's a lot of different classes that represent the same thing when you get into maps, but we're just doing a location actually has more stuff inside it than a simple position. So that's if everything is all well and good. If it is not, if we don't get an exception, but we don't get any data, we'll do a return new position 0, 0, which I don't know if that puts us at the international date line or what that does, but otherwise, we get an exception thrown. We're going to want to log that out. I'm going to take the entire stack trace of that exception and log it out. And then I'm going to return the position of 0, 0. And do the same thing for the generic exception. think all this will work. All right. Everyone following along so far? Is there anything not make sense? All right. Well, we have this guy in place. We're just about ready to hook it all together. Oh, yeah, there's one other thing I got to remember to do. So we're going to have to modify our info.plist to support non-SSL. Well, first we have to ask the user to be able to use location information. So what we're getting into now is actually Location Manager. So that's why you end up with like a lot of different classes that kind of overlap too. Like we have the location and the position, that kind of stuff, because you've got we're using several different libraries. One is geolocation. That's coming from the Essentials namespace, and that is using the on the device. It's using Location Manager. And then we're using the maps function, and the maps has its own set of classes and objects, and they don't always mesh perfectly. But so if it gets a little bit confusing, that's because we are blending different namespaces from different libraries together here. So the geolocation allows us to find addresses, and then we have to make sure that that's in a format that's recognized by maps. All right. All right, so we have our location helper done. Next thing we got to do is go back to our map view model. And now we have the ability, we have our schools, so we can say var position equals await. We're going to have to make this guy, okay, so this is a public override void. We're going to have to make this an async void. And then position equals await helpers dot location helper dot geocode. Passing in school dot address. And then we can say school dot position equals position. Okay, now we have set ourselves up all the way to the point where we now can bind our item source in our map. So let's think of this through here. So with maps, now that we're getting into maps, like up to this point, everything that we have done with data binding has been in XAML, and that's a pattern that is generally approved of by Microsoft, and it's kind of a best practice is to try to keep a lot of the code out of the code behind of the page. So all of the data binding is in the XAML, and then the code behind file, in this case mappage.xaml.cs, is very minimal, and then all the business logic is in the view model. So we're going to kind of break that a little bit this time, but it's going to be relatively minimal. So first of all, let's go ahead and set up our item source up here. At the map level, say item source equals finding schools. We'll create a list of schools, and then down in the map template. So now what we've done is we've set, so the item source of a map is some sort of enumeration of really any type of object. I mean, it's pretty versatile. You could have a enumeration of positions, locations, anything pretty much, and then you can bind various properties to it. But to make it meaningful, it helps to have. Oh, I missed a step here. We need to make maps. Maps, not maps. All right, there we are. Maps. Map dot item template. This is very similar to the way you do a list view, where you set up a item template and a data template. Now that we have the item template, now we go data template. Just exactly like a list view, and just like a list view, you also have an enumeration of objects that you set to your item source. In here, so this is what our enumeration is going to create and bind to. We're going to create a pin. Position of the pin is going to be equal to binding. So remember, this is the school object that we're binding here. So it's going to be binding position, which is an object, a property we added to our school. Address equals binding address. And label equals, so this is what's going to appear, the title of, if you tap on the pin. Binding school name is the last property on an object. Alright, so that sets up our data template. Okay, last thing we need to do, you notice we're binding to the schools, and we have a single school at the moment, so we need to add a property over here. To make this data binding compliant and Zen and everything, let's make it an observable collection of school. And it just loves to put MVX observable collection in. I just want a standard observable collection. So we have to resolve the using. Okay, so this list of schools is going to change each time we tap on a school. We're really only going to have one school, but we're going to kind of create a collection out of that. So what we'll do is schools equals new observable collection of school, open close paren, and then we just pass in our school object. And voila. Just for now, I'm going to do this so we don't have any mysteries. Raise all properties changed. Alright, so I think now we want to build this, make sure it builds. Not quite there yet, but we're getting really close. All right, I gotta find these names for the info.p list. All right, so that's them there. So I will put these guys into Slack, and they need to be added to your info.p list. There's 2 of them that we need, and they're extremely long-winded, so that's why I always paste them in there. All right, so in the info.p list, I like to open this with the Xcode app because it converts everything into user reader friendly vernacular. So we'll grab the first one. Up at the top of the root of the property list where it says information property list, there's a little plus sign next to it. Click on that, and then you can paste that in. And then when you hit enter, if it's correct, it will change it into this user-friendly description, privacy, location, blah, blah, blah. So this is a string, and I'm not sure why it's set to 6.0, but anyway, this is actually what will appear to the user when they open up the app and they go to the maps part, or it might even be right away when you open the map, or the app rather. So this will be like you need to use location, something like that. So that's one, and you need to do the same thing with the other one. All right. So we have several settings related to the internet that we're using here. We have our when in use and always in use usage descriptions that we prompt the user with, and then we also have our privacy, our app transport security setting, which allows us to use non-secure sites. All right, so that's that. I'm going to do a clean so it picks up all the changes. And let's see. Bindings look correct. All right, so I think we're ready to give this a bad boy a whirl. Okay. And nothing happens when it happens. Perhaps I didn't set up the handler correctly. Let's see. Has anyone else got theirs working? by chance? So binding to selected item. Oops. Selected item. All right, so if all works well. Oh, that's because I never actually coded this. It's just doing a task.delay 0 and coming back. Always a good idea to take things in small bites. I think I said that. Here's proof of it. All right, so we need to actually do something other than just do a task.delay. So we have our new MVX command with our item. So what we can do is do an await navigation service dot navigate. We are navigating to our map view model, passing in the school. And in parentheses is item, which is our little lambda function or variable. Right there is our item, passing that in as a school. Now it should do a little bit more. Does anyone get a map to load? If it comes up blank like mine did, sometimes it's you need to delete the app from the simulator. Try again. Okay. Has anyone got a map coming up? Which is no. All right.
But I do see in the application output it is determining latitude and longitude.
All right. So we'll have to debug this probably. Yep, does look like it has the Latin long. All right. Those look pretty close too. So yeah, if you look at your application output, as Orion mentioned, so the longitude is a negative value because of which side of the international date line we're on. So we're negative 89. If we went 89 on the longitude, we'd be like somewhere over, I think, in the Far East. The latitude is 44.52 north. Okay, so something's not right with our maps. So we know the geocoding is working. I'm going to go into the map view model and see if I can. Problem is I can't navigate back enough. We're going to have to take this forward only right now. So it does get into the view model. I should probably put a breakpoint in the Mac page XAML.cs code behind also. Make sure that we're getting into there. Interesting. So that's interesting. Okay. School.position, so we've already navigated to that. All right. So is it the schools? Has an icon now, has a position. So everything is valid except that it doesn't actually load in the screen. And I think that is because we're hitting the initialized component in the code behind before we've finished with our view model, so nothing's actually set yet at the time that we come into the view. So what we can do is we got to add some code into the code behind anyway. Like I mentioned before, we need to do that anyhow. So no time like the present to do that. So in here, let's do an override on the on appearing. And so, of course, the first thing that happens is you have the constructor hits the initialize component that initializes all the static controls on the page. So the map at this point, when we get into the on appearing, which will happen next, should be initialized. So we're going to do some stuff here. So we have not done much coding in the code behind of these XAML pages yet, but we have to this time. So we're going to set the position. Helps if I use syntax that actually works. Position equals this dot binding context, and I think you need to go one level below that yet to the data context. Binding context dot data context as map view model. And I'll have to resolve that. We may have to, let's see, we're going to have to probably add in a project reference here for this to work. Not my favorite thing to do, but we're going to have to. All right, so in our Xamarin form stuff, we'll go to the edit references and add in the tabs core. Okay, so once we have that resolved, so again we had to add a reference in the forms project to the view models. So we're getting a hold of the binding context of the view model that's bound to this screen. We're going to get the school that's in there, set and get the position object. Now the reason we have to do this is because in order to show a certain area on the map, you have to basically zoom in on it or center it. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the map.move to region. And we'll call map span dot. Oh, we might have to add another using here. Yep. Map span dot from center and radius. And we're passing position. And we'll do a distance dot from miles, which tells us how large the viewable area is that we're working with. We'll set to 3 just to try something, see how it works. And we'll set the width zoom to give us a zoom factor of 10. Alright. So what this should do is it should center the map on the position of the school. Hopefully that will help. One more parenthesis. Like I say, I don't generally like to access the view model from the screen, but with maps it's a little bit hard not to. Still nothing. Seems like something might be wrong with the navigation because it's not. There's no back button or anything. So I think there's still something wonky with our map page. I'm just not sure what yet. Oh, I'm a fool. Should have set a breakpoint in here. So it looks like the position of our school is not valid. Again, maybe we didn't hit the, maybe it wasn't done preparing it. Yeah, sure enough. All right. This is a strange problem. Okay. So I assume everyone else is having the same kind of issue that I'm experiencing. First thing I want to do is I'm going to add a vertical options to my stack layout. And set that to start and expand. Alright. And let's see. I need to and map view model. Application services being set. It's really weird that it's running through the initialization of the page before the view model's had a chance to load. I wonder if we can. All right, so. Let's try another override here. I'm going to try and I was thinking of doing it on the on property changed to do what we're doing in the on appearing. Yeah, here. So I am going to take this code that's in here and I'm going to cut it out and put it down here. And we'll try it on the on property change and see if that helps. Nope. You have to do a check to make sure that the property name is not navigation. All right, I'll give that a try. All right, so I need to find out what the property name is. So we'll have to give it an explicit name in our map view model. So instead of raise all properties changed, we're going to have to do a raise property changed. And we need to call the name of items source Or actually, let's name those schools. All right. Then we can check in our page, and we can say if the property name is equal to schools. So if this doesn't work, there's one other trick up my sleeve that we can try. Change that breakpoint to be after the if. It never gets in there. Interesting. All right. So why is this not working? Address, everything appears to be valid. It's weird. All right, so the other thing I was going to try, if this doesn't work, then I'm going to have to go back to square one. The other thing I was going to try was to change this from an async void. So because this is awaitable, I have to change this to could be location helper.geocode, and change this to be dot result. And then change this to raise properly changed. Okay. So we'll make it synchronous in hopes that this will stop it from allowing it to run into the UI first and see if that works. That's not going to work because it's blocking on that. All right. So we're going to have to go into the location helper and change this, and we'll get rid of the async part of it. And then we need to change this locations first to default. The result dot first order default. All right. See what happens now. All right, so I'm gonna have to put a breakpoint in the location helper because it's kind of hanging, and I think it's because we're trying to make it synchronous and it's not like it. Yeah, okay, so we can't, yeah, it's got to be asynchronous. So I'm going to change this guy here, get rid of this result in the locations. And put it up here. All right, one way or another, we'll get this to work. Shouldn't be quite this hard. Yeah, it just does not like not being asynchronous. It needs to be asynchronous. All right. It's not digging it. Well, that's not much fun. So what we can do, just to make sure that our map is working, we can, let's see, we can just pass in a school with a hard-coded value in it. So I'm going to, because this guy seems to be our sticking point here, this location helper stuff. So what we can do is set the school position just to be a hard-coded value. And we can get the output from our application to get the correct value. A bunch of NSURL errors in here. I noticed it didn't prompt us for using the, if the user was going to allow the application to use its location, so that's kind of weird too. All right, so let's see here. Oh, I'm just going to set the position manually. So longitude will be, or latitude rather be 44, 45.562. This should get close anyway. Longitude negative 89.58. I think this was 44 actually. All right. So we'll use a hard-coded value for the position and give that a try. That way we're not waiting on the property location helper, and we can just of course, I realize I forgot to change this back, so it never gets into this code. All right, so this time the order was correct, but for some reason the map is not appearing, so I think there's something wrong with the map. Let's see. So everything is there that needs to be there. Make sure my namespace stuff is right. Just try getting rid of this content page.content once. That's just the stack layout inside there. Stomach. Alright, well, this isn't going the way I intended. Let's see. Not sure why I have that user in there. That's why. Right. So the view model and the view are tied together. That's working correctly. Why is it not wanting to use maps? I wonder if it's something in our info P list. It's mucked up. Maybe. So I'm going to go inside our info P list and see if there's something in there that doesn't look right. I don't know, everything looks good. Not sure why our app is failing miserably. Bummer. Alright, well at this point I'm probably going to have to dig into it a little deeper, but there's no sense in having you guys like deal with the pain. So I am going to make an assignment, but obviously it's not going to include anything with maps. But just basically, I'll give you guys a blank tabs application, a Xamarin Forms tabs app out in GitHub, and you need to pull it down, and then you're going to need to add MVVM into the tabs app, and then there'll be like a simple navigation, a simple tab navigation piece that you'll have to do. Add a new tab, like we've been doing the last couple of weeks. I gotta check that guy. Probably can't be something that simple. Alright, so there are a few things that look weird in this info P list, including the deployment target was set way down to 8 for some reason. I'm going to go ahead and try this. And that didn't work either. All right. Oh, well, anyway. So anyway, back to the assignment. It'll just be a tabs application. You guys will have to go through and do like we've been doing, where you add MVVM cross into the Xamarin Forms app, and then add a tab with a view model and an interface. I'll figure out exactly what that needs to be. Don't know just yet. And in the meantime, I will debug this and figure out what is the world is wrong. Maybe something with the pin. This is driving me crazy. Maps. Suppose I can just get rid of this item template and see what happens. So it's just a plain Jane map. There's something wrong with the pen. I don't know. Nope, that is not it either. All right. Enough pain. All right, so anyway, that'll be it. So seeing as this thing flopped, I'll work on getting it working, and then I'll just upload the source code to Slack probably as a zip file and let you guys know what was wrong. Hopefully I can figure out what was wrong, what is wrong. So that's about it. I apologize for this thing not working.